This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining us today is Sean Wade, the CEO of Power Metal Resources. Hello, Sean. Welcome back. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Mark. Thanks very much for having me.
It's good to be talking to you again. We've got a few things to catch up on. Of course, the interims were out only a few days ago. Lots of information always in these interims, particularly with Power, given the vast portfolio of projects. But could you perhaps give a snapshot from your point of view as to where the company is now?
Yes, absolutely. And look, Mark, you're right in saying that there's a lot of information in the document, and we're conscious of that. I think the way to look at the interims is in two parts. Part one, if you like, is the snapshot of where the company was as at the end of the period, which is the 31st of March, and then in addition to that, what's happened since, because we've been very busy. I mean, in terms of the key developments up to the end of the period, I think, as everybody knows, we've completed the exploration programs at Molopo, Tati, and at Baringa. Now, these have all been successful. They've all delivered positive results, and they've all got us to a point where we can justify taking them to the next stage. And of course, it's certainly in the case of Molopo, that is to find a major strategic investor to take a joint venture relationship with us to take that going forward. I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done there, as we've talked about. But so that's number one. Number two, we've had material progress in our corporate activities, and I suppose what you would call balance sheet events. We've had we reported at the 31st of March that Gold and Metals IPO was well underway. Obviously, that's now happened. So that's a major success for us, and we know that company is doing very well and generating a lot of its own news, and I know that there's a lot more to come that's going to be very exciting for investors. So that's also happened, and I think focusing more on what's happened since the period end, I think is perhaps more useful. We've had some personnel appointments. I mean, I've joined the company for one thing, but we've also brought in Bill Brodie-Good as a non-executive director. Bill's got fantastic experience. He's a geologist by background. He's also a former CEO, so he's a fantastic resource for us, and is going to add a huge amount of value to the business going forward. So we're very, very keen to reiterate our welcome to him. We also had the capital raise, which I think everybody knows about, 2.7 million, which was included the participation of Rick Rule. And that's obviously brought the cash balance to a very healthy position. So I think it's important for people to understand that what you read in the accounts for the 31st of March is different to what the accounts look like now. And I think it's worth bearing in mind that a significant amount of cash has come into the business post the period end, as also I mentioned, the gold metal IPO. So I'm happy to report, we're in very good shape. We've got activity going on across the portfolio. We're bringing in great personnel on board, and the company is in a healthy cash position.
Okay, I just want to ask you about some other recent news. That's, of course, the agreement with Jasper Consult, which is a strategic consultant in the Saudi Arabia and Oman region. What's the rationale behind this? As this seems to be a bit sort of left field, sort of a surprise to the market here, not the area where Power's been active before.
Yes, I mean, it certainly is a new venture for us, and we're really excited to talk about it. I mean, these opportunities come to us, frequently, and in all parts of the world, in all commodities, and many of which we don't take forward. But I think this is an opportunity that I think is just too good to pass up on. I mean, the Arabian Shield is a highly mineralized area which covers the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in part, obviously, and Oman. You've got very significant prospectivity for a number of commodities, but one thinks in particular copper, gold, zinc, and iron ore would be ones that I think would spring immediately to mind. It's vastly underexplored and arguably underinvested, in respect to mining. Obviously, there's a very long history of petrochemicals. So this is an opportunity which has come to us through our network. And, I think that what we can say to shareholders on this is, look, it's extremely early days at the moment. We've signed an agreement with Jasper, who are a very well-established strategic consultant in the region with a fantastic track record of success. What we're looking to do together is a number of things. Firstly, let's identify exploration opportunities, and where appropriate, let's see if we can get hold of some exploration licenses. That's number one. Number two, let's look for co-development partners in the region to help us with the finances required to bring those projects forward. And then number three, let's also look for potentially strategic partners at the power-metal level as well to help us, with our objectives overall in the portfolio. So in other words, if there are, high net worth investors or institutions that want to invest in the parent company and what we're trying to do here, we would obviously, welcome that. So those are really the objectives for Jasper and us to work together. This is going to generate, I hope, a lot of news. We have a phased approach to the investment plan. So I'm going to have a great opportunity to keep shareholders informed as more develops. We're going to take a trip over to the region to meet people probably in September. And as I say, there'll be a lot of news coming out of this, and a lot I'm sure to get investors excited about.
Okay, would these be metals projects?
Yes, typically. Okay. I mean, look, we're very open-minded. I don't want to particularly set out a stall just at this point. Yeah. It is very early days. There are lots and lots of opportunities, but obviously, we want to stick to our area of expertise, which is to explore, develop, and then crystallize that value. That's our business model. Okay. So what we'll be doing, and we hope in the region, is very much what investors have come to expect from us, elsewhere in the portfolio.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. So you're looking really for other opportunities there. Of course, the interim RNS set out three key areas of the business. There's the direct projects. That's, of course, the two in Botswana, Molopo and Tati, and, of course, the Athabasca as well, isn't it? That's right. And then you've got the business interests, which are all companies that are either IPO'd, giving a mark on the power balance sheet, or indeed to be IPO'd. And then the other, I think there was a couple of projects there that you're really just I guess on the back burner, trying to just find a way forward with them. So, I mean, where would the focus be now? Is it on the three direct projects plus finding other opportunities? Of course, as well, I guess you'd have some involvement in the IPO process as well of the other companies that are due to IPO.
That's right. So if we take the direct investment first, I mean, we reported fully, I think, on Molopo and Tati and on Baringa in terms of where those drill programs have got to and what's now going to be the next stage in the case of all three. So I think that's covered. Athabasca, we've also talked about, where we've launched a major exploration program, the largest we've ever done on that portfolio. Again, that's going to generate a lot of news. I mean, we hope to be able to, over the course of this exploration season, which will go more or less through to September, we hope to be getting results in, over that period, which obviously we'll be able to take straight back to the market. So, as I said on the last interview, I think, we're talking about, soil sampling, electromagnetic, airborne surveys and so on. So things that can yield information quite quickly and therefore, be able to come back with sort of decent content. So we'll be able to talk about all of that. In terms of the other sort of balance sheet events, if you like, gold and metal is done. I mean, that, I think that's clear for the interims. It sort of existed before, the end of the period, and since the end of the period, it's been completed. And, I know that, as I said, Oliver's got a lot of news coming out of that. So, there's going to be a lot more to talk about there. First development resources well advanced. We had a very positive trip to Australia recently, where we marketed to investors and other capital providers, and we've had a very, very good response. We're hoping to take that forward. And I think we'll be talking about that over the course of the summer. I'm sure the progress we're making there. So it's as I said, we've had a very good response. So that's the next one off the block. Okay. We've talked about uranium energy exploration IPO. That's early days, and I'm not able to say a lot more about how we're going to structure that or timing or listing, whatever, except to say that, we have committed to funding a listing for some of our assets. And I'm looking forward to being able to report back on exactly what we're doing and give some idea of timing and scale for that when we're able to. But that, that's again, an event that we hope to complete this year. So, that's on its way. And you mentioned some of the other projects. I mean, we have strategic stakes in other projects. In Silver Peak and Teneti in particular, these are excellent projects with great opportunities. And what we're doing at the moment is looking at structure, looking at commitments that are ahead for those businesses where we exist as a partner, and we're looking at ways of unlocking as much value as we can for our shareholders. So, and I hope to be able to say more on those as we go forward.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I want to get on just to a couple of 3 or 4 shareholder questions that came in. Someone was asking about the Saudi Oman deal here with Jasper. Are you continuing to explore other areas in the world, or are you doing this deal with Jasper because you can attract big investors on board from that region if you have a specific local project on their doorstep?
Well, I think it's both, really. I mean, it's a very interesting question because, look, first of all, the first thing to say is this doesn't in any way reduce our commitment to what we're doing elsewhere in the portfolio. I mean, we have, resources allocated to those. We have, the personnel in place, and we have very clear commitment and strategy for how to take those assets forward. So this is not a distraction in that sense. The way I would look at this is opportunistic. The market at the moment, we all know what the market conditions are like. And I think, this is the time in the market cycle where, it's right to be looking at opportunities where, shareholder value is available. And I think that's very much the case here.
Okay.
Now, in terms of, attracting investors to the region, clearly that's something that we would love to do. I mean, it's extremely important for us that we get new investors. I mean, I fully understand that people are frustrated with the share price, and I'm as much as anybody. But these are the markets that we're in. There is very low liquidity across the board. We're in a tough environment for interest rates and what have you. So liquidity is tough, and it's what's going to drive the share price is going to be a combination of 2 things. It's going to be delivering on our objectives and doing the things we said we were going to do, and hopefully over time outperforming expectations, obviously, but bringing new investors into the story. The shares will only go up if people are buying the shares, and my job is to set the strategy of the business, to also be the face of the company, if you like, to the investment community and the capital markets, and to find those new investors, and tell the story. So looking for a big investor in that region, is a high priority for us, and something we're focused on. And as I said, we are intending to go over to the region and hopefully do exactly that.
Okay. Just on, you mentioned there about market conditions and your frustration with the share price. I know someone was asking me that they're concerned that dilution is now perhaps becoming an issue as the balance sheet is no longer growing, and what the company intends to do to address this in the near term.
Yes, and again, it's a point very, very well made. And look, I mean, when we raise money, we issue shares, and that dilutes people, and it's my job to make a return on that. And I'm fully conscious that our shareholders, particularly those who've been in the share for a little while, have suffered a lot of dilution. However, I would say that if you take a slightly closer look at the balance sheet, I would just sort of take a slight issue with this point that we're not growing. I mean, if you look at our shareholders' equity for the period just ended, which is March 2023, that's 12,101,000 in the shareholders' equity, and that's good growth over 11,690,000 in the September period. But if you look at it on a year-on-year basis, that's versus 8.3 million. So there is very good growth in what the shareholders actually own in the business, the shareholders' equity, the business. In fact, if we take that back to September 2020, I mean, that's admittedly a reasonably arbitrary date, but you're looking at 353% growth in the shareholders' equity over that period. Now, if you translate that into shareholders' equity per share, then that would naturally take account for dilution. But even there, we are still showing good growth. So over the same period, we've grown shareholders' equity per share by 112%, which slightly more than doubled it. Now, coincidentally, look, it's important that we don't harp on about too much about the share price. That's bad practice. But it is a question and it's worth addressing. Shareholders' equity per share is currently 0.7 pence per share, which, as I don't have my screen in front of me, but I think that's pretty much where our share price is today. So, what that's telling you is the market is not putting anything into the valuation for our ability to execute. So for anything that we've got in the portfolio, for our ability to add value to those assets, to crystallize that value at the moment, shareholders are not getting paid for that at all. So, it's not my job to tell you, that the shares are cheap or expensive, but it is worth pointing out that, the market overall, I don't think is ascribing any value to any future prospects. And we've just announced this opportunity in Saudi Arabia where, clearly there's a huge opportunity, to add value. So I think all I would say is I'm taking this message to as many new potential shareholders as I can. We've talked about the Rick Rule Symposium, you and I, in previous conversations. We're going to be there at the end of July, and I'm going to be, waving that chart in front of them and saying, this is the value that we add to the balance sheet over time. If you give us £1 of capital, this is what we do with it, and this is what we have historically done with it. These are the opportunities we have at the moment. These are the commodities we're in where we think there are great prospects. I mean, we've talked a lot about uranium, but, we're very bullish on gold, lithium, rare earths, all the other things that we have in the portfolio. These are the corporate events that we've got coming up, the IPOs. So 2 currently on the pad at the moment. And, we've obviously talked about the opportunity to do something in New Ballarat as well. So there's balance sheet crystallization events. And at the moment, the market is saying, look, you're worth, you're effectively the sum of the parts, if you like, the shareholders' equity. So, we do think there is a strong case to make, for the shares, and I'm going to be making that, with energy and purpose. Let me put it that way.
So you're planning
all the month, yeah.
You're planning on getting out and talking and marketing the power project. Do the directors plan to buy shares? I think you've mentioned a few times about the importance of the secondary market.
Yes, and look, and that, again, it's a point very well made. That it's all very well saying the shares are cheap, but what are you doing about it? Are you going to put your money where your mouth is? And I like that. I put money into the recent raise. I think, as everybody knows, it would be very nice to be able to just go onto the market and buy some shares, but the regulatory constraints we have for that are huge. I know what's going on. I know what we're planning. I know what negotiations we're in. I know, what the UEE IPO could potentially look like. I can't buy shares, and to be cleansed such that I can. And by the way, that applies to all the directors. To be cleansed with a business like this, where there is so much going on all the time, to find yourself in a position where you are cleansed and that you can go and buy shares is difficult. It's not impossible, but it is hard. So whilst I completely accept the point and the implied criticism, and it is something we discuss, at the board level, people, I think, really, have to be slightly patient on that point. Bearing in mind the amount of live information that we're in possession of at any one time.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Just to finish off, Sean, I know you've had your feet under the table, so to speak, for a while now. What's the strategy and the focus going forward here to build value? You mentioned there that the ongoing activity at the minute is really in Athabasca. I know with Molopo you're seeking that joint venture partner, and Tati as well has is where it is at the moment. But that's where the focus is. That's, I guess, where the news can come from an exploration side is Athabasca, really. And also we wait to see what happens with Jasper Consult. But what are you focusing on? What's your strategy, and what can the market look out for?
So I think we've talked about, I think what, Rick Rule has called the junior merchant bank model, as he likes to put it, or, project incubator or prospect generator, whichever way, you want to look at it. What I want to get across to people is that we're not a regular mining company in the traditional sense. We've got multiple assets, multiple commodities, multiple geographies, and what we're seeking to do, as we've been saying very consistently over a long period of time, is that we explore, we develop, and then we crystallize. And the model that Paul has put in place, and that I'm fortunate enough to be able to be a part of now, and that has not changed. In the sense that we're seeking to add value to these assets while they are under our charge or in our possession, and look to monetize that monetize that for our shareholders. Now, we would like to be able to do that more rapidly and recycle the capital more quickly. But, market conditions, tend to dictate these things to a large extent. We have very active conversations going on across the portfolio on almost all of our assets, in terms of, what could develop. But these are obviously, things that we're not in a position necessarily to talk about. So, the vision for the company is to do that simple thing, is to the assets that we have, assets that we may potentially acquire, partly through Jasper and potentially elsewhere, is to achieve those investments at good value for our shareholders, have a clear opportunity to add value, add that value, and then crystallize that value later on, whether that's an IPO, as in the case of Gold Metal or First Development or UEE, or a strategic joint venture, which, as we know, we're talking about potentially with Molopo, outright sale, or any kind of vending into shells, or all sorts of corporate activity that could crystallize value. We will look at, and we have to keep an eye on market conditions. We also have to keep an eye on our share price with the firepower that we don't have, to do things. I'm looking at all sorts of different ways to optimize the capital structure, and to make sure that the growth in the balance sheet, which I'm convinced we are seeing, continues and picks up pace when the market recovers. So it's a difficult time. I appreciate that. All I can say to shareholders is that we have a clear plan. We're working extremely hard to execute it. We are generating, we hope, lots of news for people on the exploration assets, on the new potential opportunities in Saudi Arabia, and on the balance sheets events that I've talked about. What I can promise is it's not going to be a very quiet summer. We all hope to have a bit of a break over July and August, but we'll be very, very busy, and looking forward to reporting back when we've got more news.
Well, that's nice to hear. Hopefully we can be catching up throughout the summer when it is quiet. But thank you for your time for now. Sean Wade, the CEO of Power Metal Resources.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks very much.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.